David Brewster here with a new episode of Soloing Secrets, and this is yet another big one. Steve Morse, one of my absolute favorite guitarists of all time, and a huge musical influence on me at a young age. And I was still a teenager in high school when I discovered Steve, and he was popping up in guitar magazines, especially Guitar Player at that time. And I thought, well, who's this guy? And I went out and I think I bought High Tension Wires on cassette and Kansas's Power on cassette, and I was blown away. And then I became a fan. I dove in. I think I bought Power Lines, like his instructional video. I started checking out the Dregs, and just hopelessly became obsessed with Steve Morse. Steve's been on the scene since around 1969, a legendary guitarist for sure. And I also wrote a lesson in Guitar Player magazine that's a tribute to Steve, and that's right here. That's the Dweezil Zappa issue. That's the March 2016 issue with Cracking the Morse Code. So definitely, I'm a huge Steve Morse fan, and I'm excited to put this episode together. So here we go. So much like we've done on other episodes in the Soloing Secrets series, whenever you're checking out a certain player or band, it's a great idea to check out their influences and notice the musicians and groups that influence them musically. And that kind of reveals some of their habits and things they like to do in music. And with Steve Morse, he has a giant list of influences, and that includes country, jazz, and classical influences as well, on top of the rock and blues and other styles of music. So here's an image with some of the basics as far as Steve Morse's musical influences. Steve's career started around 1969, and since that time he was a founding member of the band the Dixie Dregs, which became the Dregs, also the Steve Morse Band, which was kind of his solo, outfit. And he's also worked with Kansas and Deep Purple and Flying Colors and a whole bunch of bands and musicians. So here's an image with some of the groups and musicians that Steve's recorded with or performed with over the years. As far as Steve Morse's actual soloing secrets, the things he typically likes to play on electric guitar, and I didn't really investigate his nylon string and classical guitar style, which is a completely different world, but on electric guitar, there are certain things that you'll find him playing. Hybrid pentatonic scales and chromatic ideas and string skipping and very, aggressive bending and vibrato ideas, extreme melodicism. But here's an image showing some of the things that you might find in a typical Steve Morse solo or album. So the music and ideas in this episode actually came from two different Dixie Dregs albums, and I'll admit I was completely overwhelmed when I first started putting this together, because I thought, do I hit the Dregs, or a solo stuff, or Kansas and Deep Purple and Flying Colors, or what do I do? And of course I fell in the Dixie Dregs, because I love the group. And I just kind of started, uncovering and transcribing some of my favorite Steve Morse moments and ideas, And honestly, this episode could be 10 hours long as far as trying to completely cover Steve Morse's playing style. This is way too short. 20 minutes, you can just barely scratch the surface. So I am going to uncover a lot of Steve's secrets and stuff, but just keep in mind there's a lot more where this came from. So here we go. With the opening, that's the song Country House Shuffle from Night of the Living Dregs, which is on the wall right there. Great song. And it starts with this crazy drum intro, and then Steve has this wicked single note fill that he plays, and then he starts vamping in G right there. And then it moves into that open string thing that I was playing in the beginning. But the wicked fills like this. It's wicked. One more time. So it's in G, and he's kind of doing some palm muting in there too, but he's doing... That's the first part. And right there, kind of weird. He's just kind of making his way back to that G note to start that G kind of chord riff. But one more time here, it's kind of definitely a very aggressive and tricky riff. Like and I was looping that with the TC Electronic Ditto looper earlier, that G row. Then you hear the guitar and violin double this part, and he's palm muting like a stealth kind of palm mute and doing. So it's all the open G. And then start the first part again. And then you got this. So right there. And then they're coming down like that. And then you've got the. Perfect Steve Morse example right there, especially because it's doubled with violin. Heavy dregs, sound. I love the Dixie Dregs, and that's a killer song. All right, next we're going to break down some of Steve's favorite hybrid pentatonic scales, and this is very elusive. And remember, there's more than one hybrid pentatonic scale floating around out there, and Steve loves adding chromatic notes and passing tones to his licks and phrases. So let's just start with E minor pentatonic right here. And then right here is one of Steve's favorite hybrid pentatonics. Right here. So there's your root, minor, and major third, perfect fifth, the raised fifth or sharp five, the sixth, and we're back at the root again. So it's a 6-note scale or a sextatonic scale like this. And then you can start mixing those notes with other hybrid pentatonic shapes, like this one. And you can start playing licks like this. One more time. And that's basically what Steve likes to do. He starts mixing and matching those notes around in different ways. One more time right there. Let's try another lick, ascending like this. One more time. And then end with that bend. That's where you get those really cool, like kind of jazzy and almost countrified sounding licks. And then that scale, we could actually play over here. And Steve definitely will do that sometime. You could also do it like this. You wanted to kind of move between, two different positions like that. So you definitely have to keep your eye on Steve because he's mixing and matching scales and hybrid pentatonics and chromatic scales and all sorts of stuff when he plays. Dynamite stuff. Next up, we're going to take a look at some of Steve's bending and a little bit of vibrato, but mainly his bending. And this came from Take It Off the Top from the album What If, and it's this section. One more time. So this is really crafty because he's basically targeting 2 E major arpeggios right here and right there. But he's turned it into a bending, like melodic lick, like this. That's really cool. And then come down, like a little bit of chromatic kind of sneaking in right there. And you want to bend that E up to F sharp right there. And then you're going to target this E major arpeggio. Like that. So start right there. And then you want to do, and then a hammer on right there, B to C sharp. And then pull off E to D. And then you want to bend this A up to B. Like that. So one more time all the way through it. All right, up next we're going to uncover some of Steve's targeted chromatic runs, and he does this quite a bit, where he just crams a chromatic passage into a single note or a bend or something in a solo. And this is in the key of B as far as what we're hitting here, B or B7. And think of this kind of stuff. That's kind of what we're looking at right there. So we've got, basically six notes before we hit that root note B right here. So D, D sharp, E, and then F sharp, G, G sharp, and then hit B, like that. Let's do it again up an octave right here. And there's the same thing, D, D sharp, E, F sharp, G, G sharp to B. We could do it again right here. And right there, start on that D. And then we're going to grab that A and bend that to B for your final note. And he loves doing that, where he grabs this crazy chromatic run and then usually either, like I said, grabs a single note with some vibrato or a bend or something like that. But Steve does that a lot. For some more of these chromatic runs, check out the song Ice Cakes from the album What If. And Ice Cakes is an awesome Dregs tune. And this is in B flat now, but you'll hear this. One more time. So like I said, we're in B flat, and he starts right here. So just six notes before we target this D flat. And you're going to start on A flat and then move up here. And then there you grab an A flat right there on the G string. And then start right there on E flat. And then you got this kind of country. To the end right there. Alright, last but not least, we're going to take a look at a section from the Bash, and this came from the album Night of Living Dregs once again. And the Bash is basically Dixie Dregs' cover of the Wabash Cannonball. So the Bash is Wabash Cannonball, and they're just shredding through this. But this is kind of like the middle part of the song, and the guitar and violin or fiddle are doubling or playing this together like this. One more time, all the way through it. So it's really crafty, and we're basically moving between A, or A major, and E7. There's a chord progression, happening. It's implied, but we're basically doing this. There's a big stretch up to that A right there. And that's where it changes right there to E7 implied right there. Because we're doing that. So one more time. And then right there. To A right there. So you're kind of weaving between A major and E7 with that implied riff. Goes back to A right there. Killer song for sure, and it's just frantic, and they're, like I said, just shredding through that. And I think everybody was just blown away that the proggy fusion-y band was pulling out this authentic, basically bluegrass cover and just killed it. That's going to wrap this episode of Soloing Secrets with Steve Morse. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm a massive Steve Morse fan. I love the Dregs and his solo material and all the things he's done with various groups, Deep Purple in Kansas and Flying Colors and all that stuff. I love it. And, his book, Open Ears, is excellent. I highly recommend that. All of his instructional material, his videos, any lessons that popped up, in guitar magazines over the years are priceless. And there's just something about him, he's obviously a legendary guitarist and musician. but he doesn't really seem concerned about the fame and the limelight and the attention. His focus has been the music the entire time. He's so focused and so dedicated. And I really respect that. You know, definitely before I locked on to Steve Morse, I mean, I was already listening to Van Halen and Steve Vai and Yngwie and some of those players, Satriani. But then when I locked on to Morse, I realized, like, hey, this guy can play rock, but he can also play classical and jazz and country and all these different styles of music, acoustic stuff. And that really inspired me. And I mean, not that my other influences are one-trick ponies, but when I saw Steve and what he was doing, I was like, wait, I want to do that. I want to do more than just one thing. I don't want to just be a rock guitarist or a blues guitarist. I want to be a musician. I want to be able to do it all. And Steve can do it all. And definitely inspired me to at least attempt to try to do more as a musician and learn more about other styles of music. So anyway, I love Steve Morse. Thank you, Steve, for all your influence and inspiration. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know with more content and material. Thank you.